It's race day in Spielberg for this year's Austrian Grand Prix. We are just a few moments away from lights out and our drivers thinking about navigating the Niki Lauda curve as it was renamed in 2019 in memory of one of Formula One's most beloved figures. 700 metres above sea level, 10 corners and one of the shortest laps of the season. 2.6 miles with some good overtaking opportunities, but you've got to get the braking right into turn 1 and turn 3. Off the back of a fantastic qualifying session, it's time to see how our starting grid looks like for today's race. What a qualifying yesterday for George Russell. He'll start today's race from pole position, edging out Lando Norris, who'll start from P2. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Leclerc, Antonelli, Calimea, Bortoletto, Behrman, Sainz, Jackson, and Alex Albon. Alonso, Colapinto, Isaac Hadjar, and Stroll, Gasly, Ocon, Pepe Marti, and Jack Doohan, Hulkenberg, Aaron, Maloney, and Liam Lawson rounds off the grid. And with lights out just moments away, it's time to go down to the track. And we welcome you to the commentary box overlooking the circuit. I'm Alex Jakes, and I'm joined by Anthony Davidson. Now, those final hours before a race, did you have a routine?
Well, for them, you've got your pre-race rituals that you go through. You see different drivers that, some have got their headphones on, they're listening to the music. Some drivers really absorb the energy from the crowd and they're there waving to them. Other drivers, they go within themselves. They chat to their engineers, absorbing that information, that vital information that you need to carry you through the race. And, those pre-race rituals are essential to making things systematic. We do a lot of Grand Prix in a season, and the more systematic you can be, the easier you are within that environment.
Here we go then. The formation lap gets underway, and the excitement here is building as we near ever closer to the start of the race. Which team will come out on top? Who's got their strategies right for today's race? Well, we'll soon find out. We're almost ready to take the start of the race as the cars take their positions on the grid, with the drivers and teams making their final preparations.
All right, there we are as George Russell is pulling up to the first grid slots here in Austria. You can hear the engine issues like we did last time out in Canada with Jackson. That's going to be the Red Bull of Lando Norris there on the right side. For the inside of turn 1, going up to turns 2 and 3. Russell Norris on the front row. 5 red lights are on. And we're off for our Austrian Grand Prix halfway through the season at this point. We see Jackson moving up the outside, getting 2 positions, trying to get it past Sainz. The Ferrari and Mercedes side by side coming up out of the first turn. We see Lando Norris taking the inside of turn 3. Leclerc by himself behind. Mayer and Antonelli side by side. We see Carlos Sainz in the McLaren, followed by Bortoletto. Jackson passing Behrman as they're side by side coming down the hill in sector 2 between turn 3 and 4. Ocon and Marty fighting for position down the order just a bit. So we're coming through sector 2, turn 5, coming into turn 6 now. Ocon with the points from earlier in the season. I'm not quite sure which race it was. Now that I think about it, Lawson and Aaron pulling up the back of the grid as we're coming through turns 9 and 10 to finish out the first lap here in the Austrian Grand Prix. Pretty quick lap, one of the fastest track, or fastest lap on the grid so far, as we see Jackson past Bortoletto down the main straight into turn 1. Norris about a second behind Russell. He's still within DRS, active this lap. We see the cars coming up the hill. You can see them all the way coming out of turn 1 with that angle. Very nice angle. is I realized when I raced this weekend, I completely forgot that I haven't been using some of the mods that I had last season, so we reinstalled those mods as we were going through the grid. Almost 3 wide there coming into turn 4. Alpine of Colapinto fighting for P10 against Oliver Behrman. Alpine's been trying to make some ground, getting some points this time of the year would be very helpful for the team. Antonelli sitting on 3rd place now, just about 3 seconds back behind Lando Norris and George Russell. We're fighting it out up front. Norris is going to have an opportunity to make a move on Russell coming onto lap 3. Leclerc defending against Mayer, Sainz, and Jackson as that small train bunches up. Bortoleto, Albon passing down the main straight as we're coming up the hill on board with Leclerc. Back on board with Russell and Norris coming through turn 3. Russell not giving it up yet. Norris still has another opportunity pretty much as long as he stays within DRS range, as we see Antonelli trying to pull away from Leclerc, Mayer trying to pull away from Jackson, and Carlos Sainz, who are fighting for a position. We're on board with Bortoleto and Albon. We're coming down the hill through turn 6 and 7, the start of sector 3, as we see what Norris can do this time around. As Russell won last time out in Canada. And as we're actually looking at our stats here, Red Bull's sitting in 5th. So a podium with Red Bull will be very helpful in the championship, putting them ahead of Aston Martin, hopefully. Depending on where Alonso finishes in the championship, we see Russell holding on the outside of turn 1. Norris has the advantage. He's going to have DRS coming. No, the detection zone is... No, I don't think there is. Is there DRS coming up the hill? I don't remember. Honestly, no, yes there is. Almost 3 wide, a little bit of damage there. I'm not sure who it came from. As we see Mayer, Jackson, and Antonelli. A little bit of side pod or underfloor damage possibly, as we see Norris still trying to get into the back of George Russell. And that battle is going to be going on for a while, as we're already over halfway done with lap 4. But down the order, on the next lap, we're on board with Pierre Gasly. Russell still ahead of Norris. Antonelli about 2.5 seconds back. He's on board watching the battle between Behrman and Hadjar as Stroll is throwing himself into the mix through turn 3. You see the Platinum McLaren there, the final pack, final delivery of the 4-pack McLaren that we've used so far this season. Almost 3 wide, and it's going to be a little bit 3 wide going into turn 4. And we have a spin on board with Gasly. It's going to ruin his race this weekend. He was in a decent position, as we're only 5 laps into this race, practically almost 6 laps, as we see Stroll and Behrman side by side coming through turns 6 and 7. Going to the top of the order, Norris looking to make another move coming up the hill out of turn 1 on lap 6. See what he can do. We did lower our wings for this race, knowing how the car handles. We see Norris on the inside of turn 3. Russell holding on the outside, keeping that momentum to stay ahead on these medium tires. Colapinto Alonso fighting for position back in P10, P11. No action going on until lap 9 pretty much. We're going to see Norris try to make another attempt to overtake Russell. This time on the outside, well, inside of turn 2, outside of turn 3. And that's basically going to be Norris ahead of Russell this time around. Antonelli, Jackson, Mayer for our top 5. Leclerc sitting P6, Sainz P7, Albon P8, Bortoleto P9, and Alonso P10. Bortoleto on the season, I'm not sure how many, I don't think he has any points now that I think of it. No, he has 2 points. Charles Leclerc has 76 at this time of the season, so Esteban Ocon with the recent points is ahead of Bortoleto. So we go through the order. Norris ahead of Russell by the end of lap 9. We made an unnecessary cut here but that is my kind of fault. But we're on board with Stroll coming through turn 1 on lap 10. That's going to be a spin for Stroll. He's going to be cautiously pulling over to the pit exit as to not cause any issues. We're on board with Lawson to see if he can make a move on Stroll, but it's not quite his situation that Stroll wants to be in at this point of the time. Gasly and Stroll so far being the drivers to spin out on these tires. Running 10 laps on these medium tires. I'm not sure how many people are going to be going for a one-stop, but that definitely will be the case yet again. As we're at the end of lap 11, George Russell leading Lando Norris coming into the pits for an early stop, which means we're going to be coming in on a 2-stop with George Russell. See who else comes in behind us as Norris leads Antonelli. We see Jackson going through the start-finish line. And I believe that might be Alonso, unless Bortoletto is passing Alonso. And we see the crew of the Gulf Williams coming in. So that's going to be... No. We see Albon coming in. I believe Carlos Sainz as well. So hard tires for Albon. Albon's going to be on a 2-stop. He has an issue there with the right rear tire. It's going to be Carlos Sainz, Albon, Bortoletto coming in for their first pit stop. So those are going to be guaranteed 2 stops. And we're going to have other pit stops here within the next few laps. Gasly still sitting back in P22 off of that spin earlier in Sector 2, Turn 5. We'll see Paul Aaron coming in as well. Pepe Marty came in, I believe. I could be wrong. Norris leading 1.9 against Antonelli and Mayer. Side by side coming into Turn 9 with Jackson close behind. And we do not want to see them wreck at this point of the season. They're sitting currently third at 116 points behind Gulf Williams at 132. Back on board with Russell to see who comes in this time around, as he's going to be closing in on Alonso. Alonso on old tires, looking like he's going to be running a 1-stop, so he's going to be right in the gearbox of him, trying to get around him on a fresh set of medium tires. We see other people coming into the pits. Jackson sitting P4, fighting Antonelli just up ahead. 13 and a half seconds is the gap. So we see the drivers dropping through the order. You can see who has come through. Hadjar, Hulkenberg, Ocon for their pit stops. Paul Aaron now sitting in last place of that pit stop. So Gasly is pushing for a 1-stop at this point of the race with that earlier incident. Lap 13 already as we go back on board with George Russell, trying to catch up to Antonelli, Jackson, and Mayer, who have yet to take a pit stop. And we'll be going to our F1 commentators.
The Austrian Grand Prix has been nothing short of exhilarating, and to our surprise, more teams are once again opting for one-stop race strategies. This time, Naomi Schiff joins the commentary box to share insights on regulation changes and provide analysis of the current mid-season trends as teams cleverly navigate and adapt to the evolving tyre regulations.
Thank you, Crofty. We first observed the potential for a one-stop race in Spain, traditionally considered feasible due to weather conditions. However, the FIA has examined the matter, noting that teams have adapted and fine-tuned their cars and tyres to maximise tyre longevity. There haven't been any significant changes that would prompt the FIA to deem them illegal, so no official restrictions have been imposed on the modifications being made. This demonstrates how effectively teams can work behind the scenes to adapt their cars and maintain competitiveness.
We have seen some of the teams in the back of the field make progress, such as Haas, who have now scored points, as well as Alpine's Colapinto currently sitting within the top 10. Can those back-end teams capitalize on these changes?
The data and changes are made public to all teams. While the back-end teams will have the opportunity to make modifications to improve their cars, they must still operate within their team budgets. As a result, not all teams at the back of the grid will see significant improvements, but they will still be able to make progress relative to the teams around them.
That's some much-needed information and a great opportunity for the teams in the backfield. Speaking of teams, Naomi, I don't believe we've discussed this yet, but we've received news that Ford Racing Bulls, Red Bull's sister team, has been officially confirmed to be bought out by another racing brand. Could you elaborate on that for us, Naomi?
The news broke in the paddock earlier this week before practice. Instead of bidding for an F1 seat, Maserati has bought out Ford Racing Bulls. This marks the team's return to the grid after nearly 70 years, with plans to reinvent themselves into a competitive force and give their name a fresh new look.
It's surprising for such a big brand they are now compared to back when they raced, achieving 2 drivers' championships in 1954 and the other in 1957. It will be exciting to see them back on the track next year to see what they can do.
The excitement is off the charts. I can hardly contain myself waiting to see that car. Now, as we peer down to the pit lane, there's Ted Kravitz, blending in at the Red Bull pit box like he's been hired as their undercover snack inspector. How's the vibe down there, Ted?
I was really hoping my sneaky snack break would go unnoticed, but in between bites I managed to chat with Christian about the race strategy. It looked like the team was leaning toward a one-stop plan for Lando Norris. Apparently, unlike me, he's not stopping for snacks.
Sadly, the snack break must come to an end, and as we see Norris squaring off against Kelly Mayer. Christian, the team's holding their own, but one has to wonder, how does the team feel in the standings?
The team is in great spirits, consistently securing points, finishes and pushing for podiums. There is confidence in achieving a strong season, even if it does not include standing on the top step.
Sorry about that, Christian. You do seem a bit concentrated on the race, so if we need to let you go, we can reach out another time.
It is Red Bull's home race, so the focus is evident. As mentioned earlier, Norris is battling Mayer and aiming for a potential podium finish.
All right, then. I guess we can move down the pit lane to McLaren. Zach, I hope you're not as focused on the race as Red Bull currently.
Oh, no, not at all. We're sort of cruising along just fine where we are. But, hey, having both drivers in the points at the end of the race would be like finding an extra fry at the bottom of the bag. Unexpected and absolutely delightful.
We did see news on McLaren's page of a new sponsor for the team next season.
That's right. We've partnered, with Monster Energy as our sponsor and have an exciting lineup of merchandise set to launch in the coming months. We eagerly anticipate the opportunities this partnership will bring next season and can't wait to see where it takes us.
What are your thoughts on the new teams joining the grid next season? You have worked alongside the teams that will be replaced, and how do you feel about these changes?
Formula One is an ever-evolving sport, and watching team members come and go can be a significant change for many. Take Lando, for example. He joined McLaren as a fresh face with much to learn, and over the seasons you can see such individuals grow into greater versions of themselves. I believe that the teams that depart will always be remembered by those who choose to remain in the sport, and seeing Maserati as one of the teams to come back onto the grid, there will be much to take from them, knowing how much the brand has grown, knowing the manufacturing behind the car if they supply their own engine.
That was a well-considered response, and we appreciate the honesty. It increases anticipation for next season as we await confirmation of the remaining new teams joining us. Exciting changes are on the horizon, with plenty of intense battles on the grid likely to unfold, much like the one we're witnessing as we get back to the action.
All right, lap 20, sector 2, turn 4 and 5. Russell leading Callie Mayer 7.9 seconds. Norris close behind, within a half second of Callie Mayer. Moving on to lap 21 now, same sector. So we see Russell, the gap trying to close from Callie Mayer to Russell. Norris close behind, Jackson about 6 seconds behind that driver as we're going through the order to see what kind of gaps we have. 10.6, 10.7 seconds between Ocon and Alonso. Seeing Gasly come in for his pit. Paul Aaron coming in for his pit. And that's going to be Maloney in the Haas spinning through turn 1. And oh my god, that is Lance Stroll with Pepe Marty close behind, smashing and ruining his front end. The rest of the car is coming to a stop, coming through turn 1. The onboard of Zane Maloney putting too much pressure down through turn 1, and then Aston Martin's Lance Stroll for the red flag here in Austria. All right, there we have it, a red flag right before we come into the pits, so very unfortunate. Well, I don't know if it's unfortunate or good timing on our part, but it does save us a pit stop.
All right, if we play this right, we can get a nice advantage here. Let's have a think about how we handle the rest of this race.
And we were losing time, so I feel like we should be safe running on hard tires. We don't have any space to run soft, so it's going to be a 14 lap run to the end of the race on these hard tires. So let's get back to the race. All right, yet again, 5 red lights here in Austria for the second time. Russell leading Mayer, the lights are off, and a little bit of a choppy restart for our recording, so I don't know what was going on while we were recording that. Mayer has the launch, has the inside. We hear some contact between Norris and Jackson as they're stuck side by side. We have Leclerc and Antonelli behind them as well, as drivers are already starting to go single file. 2 Gulf Williams now sitting on the cusp of both getting points. They have to get ahead of Alonso to get both drivers on the board. So we're going through the order, seeing who is 2 by 2 coming through that first downhill section. 23 of 36, so there's not much racing to go. Zane Maloney causing the red flag earlier, back in P17. Mayer's leading Russell about a half second. Jackson is close behind, coming through the end of Sector 3. And at this point, I'm not going to be able to catch up to Callie Mayer, so we're going to have to recruit the maneuvers of Aiden Jackson behind us to try to stay with Callie Mayer and get ahead of her on this restart, as everybody's pretty much on hard tires. Everybody already switched to hard or mediums through their pit stops. So coming up the hill, turns 2 in Sector 1, turn 3, we let Jackson go on the inside. We have the momentum coming out of the corner, but we're just going to go ahead and let him come by here in coming up to turn 4. We're going to be using the toe to stay with him as much as possible, to try and see where we can make a move on Callie Mayer. It might be the end of the next lap, I'm not quite sure. But we do have Lando Norris close behind and Charles Leclerc close behind to worry about, as that front pack starts to pull away. 25 now. Jackson looking to make a move on Callie Mayer. Norris is starting to fall back as we see people switching positions down the order. We decide to leapfrog with Jackson to try to make a move on Callie Mayer ourselves. We went a little bit too far wide, so we went ahead and gave Jackson a position back. And it's basically racing for the podium at this point. We just got to make sure Norris stays off the podium. Coming up the hill, lap 26, Jackson trying to close in on the inside of Callie Mayer, almost 3 wide. We take advantage of that outside lane and use that momentum to try to close in on Callie Mayer. Jackson probably upset that we made the move, but both drivers are on the podium at this point. We brake late on the outside of turn 4, losing traction as we're still looking to make a move on Callie Mayer, and only time will tell because we have about 10-11 laps to go here in Austria. 27 now coming down the hill of Sector 2, looking to see what we can do against Callie Mayer. We're going to brake late on the outside as she kind of hesitates. A little bit of contact there. I'm not sure if you saw it, but you can definitely hear it as Russell now leads Callie Mayer coming down the hill through Sector 2. And at this point, we held Mayer back as best as we could on the next lap to keep him up on the podium as he's side by side with Mayer coming through turn 1. We don't need another spin, especially this late in the race. Jackson now P2, 1.3 seconds behind Russell. So at this point, it's a Konnersport 1-2 as we go through and see if Norris is trying to make a move on other drivers. Callie Mayer sitting P3. Norris is looking to make a move coming down the hill, as we see him try to close in on her. Carlos Sainz P7, Alonso P8, Bortoletto P9, Hadjar still holding on to P10. Lap 32 now, we see Lando Norris try to make a move on Callie Mayer into turn 1. He's not going to have the room to do it there. He's going to see what he can do coming up the hill. He's going to have DRS and have that momentum because she is about 3 seconds out from Jackson. So at this point of the race, we're basically leapfrogging with Jackson to get, or not really get, but stay ahead of the pack. Norris making a move on the outside ahead of Callie Mayer, pushing him to P3, Mayer P4, and Leclerc pushing on the outside in sector 2 coming into turn 4. So Mayer in turn is going to be losing out on 2 positions. She's now dealing with her teammate Antonelli behind him. As we're moving on to the final lap, Russell, Jackson, Leclerc is our top 3. As now that I think about it, Jackson, we drove with Jackson last time around in Canada, and George Russell won the Canadian Grand Prix all on his own. So with the current standings right now, before finishing this race, Konnersport leads 171 to 132. That's a 39-point gap against Gulf Williams. They're sitting right there at the edge of the top 10 with only 1 driver scoring this time around. Mercedes sitting in 3rd at 116, so they're going to be scoring some points. As Red Bull is also going to be scoring some points as they're sitting in P5. But the main battle is between George Russell and Aiden Jackson. The battle between the top 3 is going to extend as we see Jackson coming into turn 9 actually, trying to make a move. There's not going to be enough time for him to make a move. George Russell to win the Austrian Grand Prix. Aiden Jackson to come back in 2nd. And then Charles Leclerc to finish this race in 3rd place.
The British driver will look up and see the checkered flag first. George Russell takes the checkered flag.
And that's 2 wins in a row now. It's the start of potentially something special, but they can't get ahead of themselves just yet. It's a long way to go.
Striding out to take the acclaim of the crowd and their team below are podium finishers. And absorbing the acclaim of the crowd, George Russell on the top spot. Well, that certainly was an exciting weekend of Formula One. Be sure to join us for more exciting Formula One action very soon.
All right, there we have it. The race result for the Austrian Grand Prix. George Russell starting on pole. Had a little bit of an issue there in the middle of the race with pace, but we came out on top. Then Aiden Jackson coming up from P9 to P2. A little bit of a team game there after the red flag restart. And we leapfrogged pretty much there at the end to get away from the pack. Charles Leclerc passing out Lando Norris there at the end, and Callie Mayer dropped off during that battle towards the end of the race for P7 for her finish. So we go into our standings, our top 10. Franco Colapinto, surprisingly, with Alpine to score the team's first points. Bortoletto just outside of the points. He started P6, but both Williams have scored, 1 McLaren, and that's pretty good on Alpine's sense. So Colapinto is on the board for the championship, leaving 6 drivers without any points. And that makes it 2 teams without scoring with Alpine on the board. Konnersport leads 214 points to Gulf Williams, 138. Mercedes right behind them by 6 points, so 138 to 132. And then the battle between midfield of Red Bull, Ferrari, Aston Martin, Honda, and McLaren back in P7 at 75. We go back to the driver standings. 14 points between George Russell and Aiden Jackson. Back-to-back wins for George Russell, as our podium was actually the championship standing after this race. Lando Norris at 4th, with Fernando Alonso at 5th, and then top 10 sitting with Carlos Sainz. So both Mercedes, both Gulf Williams fighting it out in the top 10. So a pretty close championship between Konnersport, well, Williams and Mercedes, as Konnersport pulls away. And we're going to be starting to save for next season at this point with our lead. So we're going to have to look forward to that. And that's pretty much it. It was a fun race, and I hope you guys enjoyed. So we'll see you guys in the next one.